So you joined, if I'm not mistaken, back in January. You had been on MSNBC for a number of years and then parted ways with that network. Tell me about, let's talk about the day before you were approached or you made contact with RT. What did you know about them? What did you think about them?
Well, I really didn't know a whole lot about them. And it was kind of an investigation process on my part. I was curious, and I heard all kinds of things. But when I met Misha, the general manager who runs all of the network across America for RT, I was very impressed. I thought we had similar goals. What I wanted to do and what he wanted me to do matched up. And we had spoken for a number of weeks and then finally decided to put something together by the first of the year, and we did that. I worked at MSNBC from April of 2009 until July of 2015. So I went home. I didn't know what I was going to do. I continued doing my podcasts and my website, which I still do to this day. I had given up my network radio show a year previously in May of 2014 after doing that for 11 years, and I just got tired of it and I wanted to do something different. So when I went home in July of 2015 after being released from MSNBC with a number of changes that they were making, I just kind of sat and thought for a while. You know, what am I going to do? What do I want to do? And at about that time, there was a lot of election conversation going on, and the primary season was going to be kicking in pretty soon. So I said, you know, I got to get back in this game. What opportunities are out there? So we were able to get together and do this, and it's really it's been about the best job I've ever had. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the freedom that I have. I enjoy the way things are done here at RT, and it's different from what I've been exposed to. I was doing an opinion show on MSNBC in the past, but this is a straight news read, and this is something that I think fits me really well, and it's where I want to go with my career now.
So briefly, you had said that your Misha and your sort of goals were aligned. Tell me, just going in, what were your goals to achieve this, and what did he describe his aspirations were for the network and as well?
Well, he was looking for a news anchor. He was looking for someone who wanted to anchor the news. They have a number of different variety programs on RT America, but we're looking for a primetime news anchor, and he thought that I was going to fit that criteria very well. And the question is that what I wanted to do? And quite honestly, I didn't realize it at the time until after it was over with, but it's hard doing an opinion television show night after night after night, and you can't have a take on everything. And so this was really a refreshing move for me to make sure both sides of the story are covered, make sure that we're fair and factual and journalistically based, and also a little bit deeper in scope. And so this was something that I was very anxious to be a part of, and it's worked out really well. I'm really enjoying myself.
You have had takes a lot over the years, that said. What do you make, how would you characterize Donald Trump, and what are your feelings about him these days?
He is the change agent that America has been looking for. He's not Washington. He's from the business sector, and he's from a very elite business sector. He's made a lot of promises that gravitated with a lot of Americans, that motivated them to at least give something different a chance. And I think that it was his appeal of giving the American people his unvarnished opinion, saying that he was sick of political correctness, saying that Washington, he's going to drain the swamp. I just think there were a lot of things that he said that the American people hadn't heard for a long time, and whether it was going to work or not, damn it, they were going to give him a shot to do it. I really do think that's what it boiled down to.
over the years, you've been pretty critical of him. If you think back to the birther movement and things, you called him a racist. There are times where it seemed to me that you were essentially characterizing him as something of a fraud. How has your thinking about him evolved over the years?
Well, he has a chance to prove now that he's not a racist. He has a chance to, because he's got the power. He has a chance to prove that he's not a fraud, that he's going to live up to these workers in the middle of the country who have been outsourced. He is going to have an opportunity to bring us better health care, which he has promised, and to improve our schools, and to have better relations with superpowers. So he's in a position of power right now, and he's going to have an opportunity to prove all of his critics wrong. I think that anybody who was trying to delegitimize Barack Obama as President of the United States based on whether he was an American citizen or not had a very racist element to it. And I think that Donald Trump made a serious mistake by going down that road. It turned out to be nothing but a big promotion for him, and I never understood its validity from day one.
But at this point, you're saying I mean, in a sense, it's like Herb Block giving Nixon a shave. You're saying the guy has a clean slate to prove critics, including yourself, wrong, and you're interested to see what happens. It doesn't sound, to me, I've not called Donald Trump a racist or a fraud, right? Even a few years back. To me, if I'd called somebody that, it would upset me, or at least alarm me a little bit, if that person then were given the keys to the most powerful engine in the world.
Well, it doesn't, bother me. Mr. Trump has earned the trust of the American people to the tune of 62 million votes, and it was an overwhelming electoral victory. He won states that no one thought just days before the election that he was going to win. So he's earned the right to be the President of the United States. And as an American citizen, I'm willing to give him a chance to prove that, I was wrong on my assertions about him earlier. This is a man who he cleared the beach when he was talking about his opponents. I mean, he knows what hardball New York talk is all about. So I don't think he's any stranger to any of that. And I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because the American people have spoken, and I think that's the way our system works and should work.
You were in September, I think it was, when the Clinton people were talking about the question of the hacked emails. You made a video saying essentially this is invented. The Clinton people are trying to do this to cast aspersions on the Russians and also on Trump at sort of at the same time. And this is outrageous, invented stuff. How do you think about that now? Do you still hold to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So just to be clear, you don't buy what is reported in the Times and the Washington Post about the conclusion of the intelligence agencies?
Not for a moment. I do not. We don't have a name. We don't have a date. We don't have a location. There's a lot of things that are missing to come to the conclusion that the Russians hacked American entities for the betterment of Donald Trump. I am not there. I think, and the reason why I posted that is because, number one, I believed it, and number two, there were narratives that were coming out of Clinton surrogates that were just absolutely outrageous. People who have absolutely no connection to the intelligence community were saying things in developing a narrative that it was, Russia's fault that they were falling behind in the polls, that it was Russia's fault that this was even a close election. It was supposed to be, in their mind, a coronation. I think to this day I'm spot on. And there's a lot of proving that has to be done. And I think where we are right now, David, is that Barack Obama and the incoming President Donald Trump have had not only one meeting, but a number of conversations. I find it hard to believe that Barack Obama wouldn't bring this subject up to Donald Trump and that Trump wouldn't know that there was an investigation coming. I think that Trump has been told, and this is speculation, I believe that Trump has been told by Obama that there's really nothing to this hacking. And that's why Trump is out just hammering the CIA right now. And why is it that when the director of national intelligence came out with a statement in October that Obama didn't immediately order an investigation? Why? Well, for politics? This isn't about politics. This is about the security of our elections. The timing of this investigation, where Mitch McConnell's comments yesterday, where were they back in October that he was so concerned about Russian involvement? He should have been concerned right away based on just the amount of information that was put out by the director of intelligence. So I'm struggling with this all the way across the board. And I think that either President Obama was inept in his job, or he didn't believe that there was anything worthwhile of an investigation until he got political pressure on Capitol Hill as of late.
A lot of people think there were a lot of years when many people looked at MSNBC as the kind of place where the evening lineup would reflexively defend Democrats, right, and liberal sacred cows. Do you feel as though we'd be hearing the same stuff from you if you were still at that network, in that incarnation of MSNBC?
Well, I think that every broadcaster has political innards. Every broadcaster has a gut instinct of what they believe and how things should play out politically in this country. It's the ones that can do the straight and narrow and do the professional job that now are becoming a dying breed, that are hard to find. And I've done that kind of broadcasting, and I've done that kind of work, and I want to do something different, and I want to prove that I have the integrity to be able to call balls and strikes and to be fair and be a journalist. If I was still on MSNBC, I could imagine myself being very progressive, but that's not the format, nor is it the mission, the professional mission that I've been cast in right now. And so I'm aware of it every day. I'm very proud of the fact that we were very fair and factual in our political coverage. I write all of the political news on the primetime news show. There isn't a word that's put into that show that I'm not aware of or written myself or pre-read and vetted every story. And so I'm very comfortable with where we are right now. And I would agree with your assessment that their primetime lineup is progressive, as I would say that the Fox News program is pretty conservative. And so that's what our news industry, our information age has evolved to. There's all kinds of news and formats and information for everybody. You can go anywhere you want to go and find out what you want to hear. And in some respects, that's what we've evolved to in this industry.
So let's talk a little bit about the journalism and about, obviously you're presenting in a role as the news anchor. One of the things about RT is that initially, as Russia Today, when it was launched, it seemed as though it was going to take in some ways an Al Jazeera approach, which is not to say identical to Al Jazeera, but that the idea is you're looking at news happening throughout the world, even in the West, even in America, through a slightly different lens. But that the journalistic values would be very similar. It just might be that you use it to apply it to different stories or find different through lines that are important, different emphases that are overlooked, the like. As certain events have played out in the public sphere involving Russia, you think particularly about places like Ukraine, places like Syria, the people that I talk to at various places in the ideological spectrum, not fixed, say, RT really has done a lot of coverage that glosses over, that pushes back, that essentially advances a line that minimizes the harm or at times the death or destruction that occurs at the hands of Russian armed forces or their proxies, or that blurs culpability by saying, look, everybody's at fault in all ways. How comfortable are you with what you see of the way in which RT covers issues that are of such importance to the Russian government and their people?
Well, I don't get a release every day on what to say or this is our position. Our mission is to be fair and factual to go deeper than the soundbite of 20 seconds, to have a broader scope, and to get both sides. And I'm very proud of the fact that I anchor a newscast that does just that. And I don't feel like there's any bent towards one country or another. In fact, I've had some level of frustration not being able to get a sit-down interview with the president of Russia. I think that would be very good for our network. I think that there's always going to be aspersions cast on a news outlet that has some type of government funding. But this is where the news world is right now. You know, in America, 90% of the media in this country is owned by 6 different companies. That was not the story back in 1983 when there was 90% of the media was owned by over 50 companies. The BBC gets government money. The Canadian broadcasting system gets government money.
Right. I mean, well, you are. I mean, look, there's consolidation in this country, and I've been critical of the corporate press in many ways, as well as at times critical of public broadcasting in many ways. But there is consolidation and then devolution, and then the reconsolidation and then devolution. At the same time, that's a different kind of influence control than government control. As you say, you say that any place can be thought of as favoring one country or another, but I want to focus on the country that you're favored by, because I think it matters, in part because, as you well know best, it's come up as an issue in this presidential season.
Which I think is completely unfounded. I believe that we have been fair and factual and called balls and strikes. David, I just
want to be clear, though. I want to hear I'm happy for whatever response you have, but I want to be clear in terms of particularly ones that are most sensitive, where lives have been at stake, and the future of countries have been at stake. Let's talk for a moment about coverage of Ukraine, coverage of Syria. Where on the one hand, there's the question of combating the presence of ISIS in Syria, and on the other hand, there's just the brutal and deadly way in which the regime has sought to reassert control over the provinces there, which is not only to defeat the rebels, but really has caused an incredible amount of suffering among civilians as well. Do you feel comfortable with the coverage that RT has provided to those issues, which might be more likely to be covered by a place like RT than by ESPN? It's relevant to people who'll take an interest in you.
I think that the rebels that have been supported by the United States have also killed innocent people. I believe that it's pretty well documented that the drone strikes fighting terrorism around the world that the United States has embarked upon has killed innocent people.
I mean, do you feel that I just want to be clear, do you feel that the United States is doing things like deliberately going after a Red Crescent aid convoy? I mean, there were things where at least according to journalists who are not in the employ of the government and seem to me to be independently minded, willing to be very critical of American government agencies, they've also reported on the bombing strikes on air convoys intended to help civilians that might have indirectly in some ways aided people involved in the rebels. This was something that the Russian troops went after. Is that the sort of thing RT has the freedom and the liberty to go after to cover?
Well, that's not an absolute, David. That's not for sure known that it was deliberately hit by the Russians. And this is where the Western view and the Eastern view collide. That we are a network of record who has had reporters on the ground in Syria that have spent more days than the mainstream media in America has had their reporters on the ground. We've have documentation of footage of the people who have suffered, that have been hit by airstrikes by rebel forces. We've gone into the hospitals. We've gone into the war zones. We have footage that you will not find, and reporters and photographers in a war zone doing some very brave work. And I don't see that kind of footage on any of the mainstream media in America. There are two sides to every story. It is a fact that the United States and Russia have totally different views on what kind of an outcome should take place in Syria. There's no question about that. Regime change is what the United States wants. Russia does not want regime change. And so we have a common enemy in the terrorists in ISIL. And this has been a really hard State Department and nation-to-nation problem to unpack and sort out. And there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be misreads of information. It is our job to get in and find the facts. And oftentimes when people hear interviews from people on the ground about what happened, there are some people that still aren't going to accept it. The fact is that that convoy that you were talking about, it's never been proven that it was hit by Russian air power. There were no Russian jets in the sky at that particular time. And we had sound bites from people on the ground that said that they were hit by ground forces. So information has absolutes. And it's our job to get both sides of the story. I do want to talk about Crimea. I want to talk about Crimea. We keep hearing from some United States senators that Crimea and Ukraine. Yesterday on CNN, it was John McCain calling Vladimir Putin a thug and a murderer. Time out. There was a vote in Crimea. 93% of the people in Crimea wanted to unite with Russia. They're nationalists is what they are, and they wanted to get back with Russia for a number of different reasons. One of them is because of the economy. In the Ukraine, the Ukrainian president was butchering Russian nationals. Vladimir Putin decided to go in and protect those Russians and arm some of them. If Americans were being butchered on Mexican soil or Canadian soil, I would hope that the United States president would do something about it. And so I think that the United States is having a hard time understanding the culture of Russia. This is a country that lost millions of people on their own soil. This is a country that has paid a tremendous price to get where they are. You're talking about
World War II, the incredible.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is a country that reveres where they're going right now as far as their sovereign democracy. Yet the Western media continues to push them as someone that, or some country that is a big threat.
Well, let's parse that just for
interesting.
Let's just parse that for a moment, though, Ed.
Yeah.
Leaving aside the question of a threat, which I think is debatable in many ways. Let's talk about the notion of, you talk about sovereign democracy. Do you feel that Russia is a free and functioning democratic state?
I could ask that question of the United States. I could ask that question of any country.
The
point here is,
I'm asking you. I'm not an employee of the United States government.
Okay,
so you
but
tell me.
Russia is a country that is doing a big experiment right now that started just a couple of decades ago. Okay, they view themselves as a young country going in a new direction. They have a House. They have a Senate. They have an impeachment process. They pass their bills the same way we do. They have subcommittees and committees, and things have to come out of committee. They have modeled a lot of what the United States does. The Western media doesn't say that. If you ask somebody on the street in America, say, how's the government set up in Russia? Oh, that Putin, he's a thug. I mean, we're culturally not paying attention to what is evolving. And I think that Putin has made some very important and interesting strides on the world stage to do a better job with China, to challenge the NATO community. Why isn't Russia a member of NATO? And why can't we get along better with the Asian countries? And they're meeting with Japan now. I mean, these are important steps forward for world peace. And the mission of the Russian people right now is to make sure that there's not any kind of dominance where some country is going to have some type of superiority over where they want to go. When I was in Moscow, I went to Moscow for the first time last summer. I was amazed at how many Russians speak English, number one. Number two, they were just like Americans in many respects. They want a job. They want a good economy. They want health care. They want a retirement. They don't want to be oppressed. They admire America. They want freedom and democracy. And so when you ask me if freedom and democracy, or whatever your question was on how Russia's being run, I think they're trying to do the best they can. View it this way.
Let me approach this though. I mean, I've covered the media for about 16 years, right?
Sure.
And politics for, so media and politics for 20 years, but media in particular for 16 years. The journalists, I'm not saying Putin ordered this, but journalists have been killed with impunity in Russia with a frequency that has caused alarm for non-governmental international groups that monitor such things. Putin has one way or another led and controlled government with sort of a modest tweak for a 4-year period in there since New Year's 2000. That's a long time. There are a number of ways in which the reason I asked about democracy is I wanted to figure out, news organizations have to be able to operate freely for democracies to work, for citizens to be able to be armed with the information they need to make informed choices. But I think by pretty strong counter argument there to the argument about functioning there. If let's say you're right, and that your colleagues have been able to be on the ground and report on things that the Western press has missed, in part because the Assad regime is not distrustful of them. I know plenty of people have tried to get in, but nonetheless, let's say that that's right. Had you found, for example, that that Russian forces had used thermobaric weapons against hospitals, do you feel that RT would have been able to report that freely?
Absolutely.
I think that's an important thing to be able to say. So you feel that
absolutely. I believe that information is not squelched, so to speak, or managed to the point where the truth is shaded in any way. I feel very comfortable in that. And it's ironic you're asking me that. These are the very questions that I was asking before I took this job. Mm-hmm. And it was very important to me that this was going to be journalistically based. I have not ever been told who I can have or not have on the air. We asked the Clinton campaign almost weekly for access, never got it. And then when we did get an interview with Donald Trump, and it wasn't even me, it was Larry King, who's interviewed half the world, and he's known Trump for 35 years, we got criticized when Trump was on our air. I mean, why? He did an interview with RT. Nobody cut the tape. Nobody edited anything. We were as fair and factual. I wish more United States senators would view RT as something that, hey, this is an avenue that we can reach the Russian people and tell our side of the story. Instead, they go on to networks that continually kick out the bullet points of intelligence agencies that don't have solid proof. And so I think that America has, as Russia, as every country does, has got a long way to find the truth. And it's our job that we have the tools and the ability to be able to do this. I do want to share in this interview that we get called the propaganda channel. In fact, this happened yesterday at a White House briefing. Josh Ernst accused RT of being Russian propaganda. Well, and then he accused RT, an accusation of having Mike Flynn, the general, who's the national security advisor to Trump now, was a paid contributor. That's false. That's a lie. That is an absolute lie that this White House said in front of the world yesterday. Was it propaganda when we were one of the first networks in on Flint, Michigan, and the water wasn't safe to drink? Is that propaganda or is that journalism? How about the Dakota Access Pipeline? Because I'm from North Dakota and I knew this was coming, we were one of the first networks in on that. How about the riots in Baltimore? When we go send a photographer there and we do stories on police shootings and police brutality in the African American community, is that propaganda or is that the truth? And so to broad brush us as a propaganda network is horribly unfair. It's not the truth. And they're the ones that are pushing the propaganda by making those kinds of accusations on us. And I take offense to it. I've had lunch with Barack Obama 4 times. I know he's better than this. And I don't know what their mission is at this point, but I really think it's wrong-headed. It does nothing for relations. And Russia sees how we're being treated over here. Russia sees how we have to fight for interviews and access, which is wrong. We have an open microphone just like anybody else. And I will say this, David. Everyone, and I mean to a T, everyone that has come on the news with Ed Schultz at 8 o'clock Eastern on RT America has walked away satisfied that they've been treated professionally and fairly. I'll let that be the measurement. Whereas the White House is too chicken to come face to face with me, especially when I was covering the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and every union in this country was against it, and Obama didn't want anything to do with a pro-union voice from MSNBC days, which is Ed Schultz. And so they need to take a look at themselves. And I hope that the Trump administration will be more open to a broader discussion of fairness and factual reporting and digging deeper on subjects. We don't take commercial breaks on our news. We fill every second we can, and our stories we don't say to our reporters, hey, you got 90 seconds. No, that reporter is going to get what he needs. Last night, we started our news with this Russian alleged hacking with Alexei Yaroslavsky. His story ran 4 minutes and 15 seconds. You know what we did? We made
it's like an NPR story.
Yes, we did it because it deserves what it takes.
Uh-huh. Has your almost year there, or to what degree has your year there affected how you think about Vladimir Putin himself and how you think about his role vis-a-vis America and the West?
I've never met the man. I don't know him. I find him intriguing as an American. I believe that there is a sense that he genuinely wants to protect his country, and he wants to get along with countries, and I think that he knows the absolutes of right and wrong. And I believe that there is a future for the United States and Russia and the superpowers. I believe that, and I believe he wants that.
There was a time where you, and it may have been a bank shot to sort of mock some of your conservative targets, but on MSNBC I remember you talking about the bromance between certain conservatives and the Kremlin, and particularly Mr. Putin, that you said they seem to be gunning for a strong leader who seems to have sort of stern kind of strongman appeal to them. How has your thinking changed since then?
Well, that's been asked me, people have asked me that in the past. I can't remember saying anything horribly negative about Vladimir Putin. I think I've said harsher things about Trump than I have Putin. So I mean, if you can calling somebody a strong man is not negative. I mean, I think Trump is a strong man. I mean, he's determined.
Well, there's a strong man. Jim Brown was a strong man in the NFL, right? But there's also a strong man, which is to say, sort of an authoritarian leader.
I don't view. I view Putin as a protector of the country. That's what I view him as. There's been a lot of bad history and a lot of bad actors on Russia in the past, and I think that he doesn't want to repeat that history, and I think that's his concern, and world security is very important to him. Would you have had that insight 12 months, 16 months, 2 years ago? Probably not. Probably not. You know what, David, I've learned a lot about the Middle East. Because, let's face it, when I was doing a primetime show on the other network, we didn't cover the Middle East very much. We were very focused on domestic issues and American politics. And so this was one of the challenges that I had when I took this job, to pay closer attention to foreign affairs and world issues and relations and news events around the world that impact all the countries. And so this has been a challenge for me, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. What am I not asking you about, or what do you want to particularly underscore? Well, I think that the United States would be well served to have a better attitude towards RT. There's a lot of good people working here that are hard-working journalists that care about the facts, that only want to do a good job for the industry. And they will go to any lengths to get the story correct. And I think that we have been terribly maligned by the mainstream media, and to the point where it's at the podium at the White House at a press briefing where you have the press secretary saying that we're propaganda. I'm appalled at that. And I think that simply is wrong. And we've been accused of supporting Trump. I wrote the political news. I couldn't have been any more fair. And we never, and this is important, not one time did RT ever break into programming and carry Donald Trump live. Not one time did we ever break into programming and carry Hillary Clinton live. And we covered them in our newscast, but look at the hours upon hours that CNN and all the other networks gave Donald Trump free airtime to the tune of billions of dollars. That was beyond journalism, that became nothing but promotion. And I think in many respects they abdicated their responsibilities in doing that. And I'm very proud of the fact that this network was the only network that had a third-party debate. We had a Green Party debate, we had a Libertarian Party debate. And we chased down candidates that would give us access. I went all over the country doing interviews with Bernie Sanders. I was in Iowa, I was in Ohio, I was in North Dakota. We would have done the same thing with the other candidates if they had given us access. The third-party candidates gave us access, but for some reason we were Russian television, and Hillary Clinton wasn't going to talk to us. And Donald Trump, he got so much smoke for talking to Larry King, I guess they got cold feet on that too. But I think that you'll find a tremendous amount of professionalism, a lot of fairness, and a lot of facts if you deal with RT America. And I'm very proud to be here.
No, that's great. I appreciate this. I would actually prefer to talk to you longer. Sure. I have to relinquish this studio, so I've got to kind of duck out at this time.
Anytime. I appreciate the interest.
I really appreciate your taking the time to talk with me and to offer me thoughtful responses.
Thank you.